What's up, everybody? Welcome to the New Friends podcast. I am your host, Silvia Costa. This episode you are about to hear is episode 2, season 1 of the New Friends podcast. Now remember, this podcast started as the No New Friends podcast. In season 1, you're really going to hear and learn the evolvement of growth and healing that I did and have done, and the work that I put into myself. Today is my birthday. It is Sunday, June 11th, and I am 35 years old today. And I have to say, I feel the most comfortable in my own shoes now than I ever have in my whole entire life. This episode is going to face some of my mental health issues, which is anxiety. I was dipping a little bit into some of the struggles I've had trying to manage it. I hope that you can relate to me, hear my story, and hope that it encourages you to take the step of healing as well and doing the work so that you can truly find the best parts of you and love yourself just a little bit more, or even just give yourself a little bit more grace and understanding. Anxiety is something that is often hidden and not spoken about, and I decided to be very open and upfront with the struggles that I've had. So this is Living with Anxiety with a dear, dear friend of mine, Dominic Duarte, and he is from Artesia, California. Him and I have had such a deep-rooted friendship for so long, and he's just a stellar, genuine guy. You guys are going to fall in love with him, and what I love to say is my friends are your friends. I hope you enjoy. Follow, subscribe, and rate. I am available to your ears on any platform that you listen to your podcasts and on the Palma Media radio station, Palma One. Thank you for all the support. Reach out to me, send me your love, tell me you're listening, and I hope to see you all soon. I am beyond pooped from Dia de Portugal, Day of Portugal Festival and earthquakes. It was a blast. I loved seeing you guys and being there with Palma Portuguese Media radio station, interviewing all of you wonderful Portuguese people. It was amazing, and I cannot wait for the next event. All right, you guys, here it goes. Action. Hey everyone, we are back with a late night session, a late night episode, which is very typical for the guests that I am going to have, because I feel like the conversations that we always ended up having were definitely late night combos, and he's my favorite person to talk to because there just aren't many people that you can get really deep with and not feel judged. So him and I have been friends since we were teenagers, and we got close in our 20s, and like I said, I ghosted him in a way, how I feel. So Dominic, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. That was a very nice intro. I appreciate that. Those were very kind words.
Of course, I definitely mean it. I think I carry a lot of guilt for the years after, because I did that to a couple of good friends. I just distanced myself a lot, which I think sometimes you just have to do that. But I'm sorry that I did that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I don't think, and well, I'm acknowledging you're sorry, and I think that it's okay. Like, I don't think there's any harm in like taking space from friends. There's a lot of people that I've lost like communication with for a very long time and then retouched up with. So like for that, as that goes, like there's never hard feelings when it comes to that. 100%. Like, don't ever feel bad about taking time on your own and distancing yourself from people, because it's a lot better to like distance yourself from someone and like work on whatever it is that you're trying to bring to them. Because really, if you're not bringing to the friend what you intend to, then you're not having a very like meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
Like what I'm trying to say is you might need to stop being friends with someone in order to be a better friend to them later on.
Yeah.
And
And I
I've
think I
yeah.
kind of dipped into like what I was going through at that time. Like I think I was kind of in and out. I don't think it was like a hard stop, but it was like I think I kind of wavered away a little bit. And I
Well,
think I kind of
yeah.
dipped into
No, yeah,
like what I was going
yeah,
through at
of
the time.
course. Of course. That's what I'm saying. I think it almost just seems like things it just like grew apart, you know, like I know that what like for I don't know how much, you know, you want to talk about this, but I know that a lot of
Well, let's start at the beginning because we're already diving in. And mind
yeah,
you,
of
I just
course.
like disclaimer,
Well,
Dominic and I have not
yeah,
talked on the phone at
exactly.
all. We've just been chatting through Instagram, and it hasn't been anything like in depth at all. So this is very raw. This is not anything that we've like filtered or anything like that.
100%. Like this is just like I haven't even spoke to you on the phone for years.
Years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a very interesting dynamic. Like first and foremost, I want to make sure that I'm communicating what I want to communicate to you. Like I don't really care who or what's listening, you know. And
Yes.
so I don't want it to be saying things that I don't actually want you to understand. You know what I'm saying? I'm not speaking to an audience. I want to be speaking to you.
100%. That's exactly, and I'm putting myself out there in this vulnerable spot of connecting to someone. And I'm not saying every episode is going to be like, oh, like I'm not their friend, now they're my friend. I hope to have like different types of guests that are just not people that I'm not friends with anymore. But I think this is like the premise of what I want to do because it's selfishly for me
Interesting. Yeah.
to heal because I carry a lot of guilt because I put my friends most of my life in front of like my sisters, my family. Like I really held my friends up there on a pedestal. So I have guilt for some of those friendships and relationships. And not all friendships and relationships I think I'm open to go there yet or ever as well. So
Yeah, because I would like to like that's what I was gonna say. I want to stress to at least you that I don't feel like any hard feelings towards you because we haven't talked as much as we used to. Like I feel like we're still friends, but it is kind of jarring because we haven't communicated on a regular basis. So I understand where you're coming from. It's almost like the level of communication kind of just fizzled out.
yeah, for sure.
And I don't
Well,
know. I don't know if it's like a lack of self awareness on my part. I just don't carry the same guilt. Like I don't. I guess I don't feel like guilty that we stopped talking. I feel like it is unfortunate that we don't talk as much as we used to. But I understand how busy people become with life. You know, like we're in the
yeah,
stage where there's so much hours in a day, and you can only dedicate so many to so many people
exactly.
and you know, and it's never hard feelings ever for me.
Well, thank you. And I clearly don't have any hard feelings towards you, but I have to say my number one thing about you, and I definitely did not get this out of every friendship. Of course, every friendship's different, but you never made me feel weird or judged or like I have this insecurity sometimes when I'm talking to people maybe that I don't feel are close or I always have this in the back of my mind where I'm like, do they really like me? Am I like a likable person really at the end of the day? But I'm trying to really dig deep to figure out one why my friendships seem to fall apart and I know that's part of life, but how I can now move forward and actually make maybe new friends because have a really hard time making friends now. And I'm like, not my type of person.
Okay, yeah,
That's not my type of person.
understandable completely. And you've put deep thought into what has caused you to stop being friends with people in the past, you said?
Well, I think every situation's so different. Every friendship has a different dynamic and different reasons for falling out or falling apart. But there are friendships, for instance, you and I, where I'm like, damn, like that's one friend that I didn't really want to feather away. Like I
Yeah.
wanted it, I didn't because your friendship to me was very important because you always were a safe place for me. When I would be in Artesia in those times in our 20s, so like
Yep.
I had
just started learning about my anxiety and what it was. I mean, the first time I had breathed in a bag was I was in Artesia.
Yeah.
And that's when like I was learning like, oh my God, I have this feeling, this thing. This is not just like,
It's physical. It's not in your
yeah,
head sometimes.
it definitely became something that was like an
Yeah.
outer body like experience.
Yeah.
So I knew already that you had experience with anxiety. So you felt very safe to me. I knew that I could say like, "Hey, I'm not feeling right. I'm
Yeah.
having a I think I'm having a panic attack." And we would kind of like, "Okay, like let's center,"
Yeah.
in a way. And I think you and I had that
Yeah. And
for
for sure.
one another.
And
Like,
a lot of the feeling I think that you feel from like the non-judgment that you feel from me is just like it's me trying to cut off the cycle of the um embarrassment I feel from it. So I feel immense embarrassment from when I get anxiety, and I feel very judged, and like I feel very similar to all the ways you feel. So
yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with reciprocating or like reproducing that feeling for someone else. I agree with you completely. Like when there were that's where we became friends. Is like when like there was a moment where it's like, okay, we need to recenter, and it's like like we need to recharge our social battery for a second. So let's get away and like just like chill out, and then we can go back and re-socialize with everyone. And that's true. I don't want you to think that like I know the answer to anxiety.
No.
Like it was if you ever felt like I did, like if you ever felt like there was a moment where like I was in control of it, it was probably me just trying to mask the fact that I was not in control of it.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that I do to like recenter myself, and I like to try to control like the flare ups. But in that time, like you were saying, we were all pretty brand new to it. Like I had just
Yeah.
started experiencing my anxiety in my early 20s, like, and I didn't want to acknowledge that it was even a thing. For the longest time, I wanted to just subvert it, like it was just in my head, and it was something that I could ignore, and it was just me not being in the right frame of mind. And I something about the going to the hall kind of exacerbates my anxiety, and I think that's something that
Okay, let's
something
stop right there because I feel like that's a good segue to introduce, like, to talk about. Not everyone knows what the hall is.
that's true. Yes,
So,
exactly. Like I'm 1,000%.
when we were probably like teenagers, I want to say I was maybe 17, 16 years old. What, you're a little bit younger than me, right?
Yeah. So I was, I want to say 15, 16 years old, 15 years old. It was probably yeah. So 15,
And
14, 14 or 15, right there.
yeah, so we were part of this Portuguese American Federation, held a annual convention, and all different parts of California, they would do a musical variety show where we would be expressing Portuguese culture intertwined with American culture. We are both from the same culture. We're Portuguese.
Yep.
So that's where we met. It was fun. And I remember um like after the show, like that night, we were hanging out by a pool or something, and we were just having the best time ever, just laughing our ass. And
Yeah.
those are some of the best times ever.
I think the very first time I met you, I could be wrong, but I was coming down the escalator, and you were with a group of people that you performed with, um, and you were like congratulating me and congratulating us and stuff, and we're like super nice and super friendly. And I think that was the very very first time that we said hello to each other. And
It was definitely some good times. And man, that is what started me going to Artesia, because I'm such good friends with all of you guys. And my first road trip ever was going to Artesia. And the amount of times I've driven there is crazy.
you guys came
So
down all the time.
all the time. Fast forward, I don't even know how many years ago was this. I was trying to look at like our last photos, and I think it was 2016
That sounds all right.
is when like I would say like to 2014, 15, 16 is when I was like really good friends with you. Those were the years that we were like tight.
Yeah, you guys were like I felt like you guys were always coming down, and you like the communication was really rock solid for sure. So we were talking a lot at that time, and we were really close friends. And like I just talked to Drea the other day. Like it's just interesting how time flies by, and then you look back on it, and it just feels like it wasn't that long ago.
Know if you knew, but like that time I was going through really bad heartbreak. I had gotten out of a relationship that I was in for 4 years, and I thought that was going to be like my everything. And
Hmm.
he told me he just never saw himself ever getting married or having kids, and I just knew that was not something that I was going to settle for. So I was in a position where I was breaking up with somebody that I was still in love with. And so my mind completely went, well, I'm going to just do whatever it is that like he would think is like unattractive in a way. Like I did stupid things, like I put my belly button ring back in.
Yeah.
Like I started going out like crazy, and I spiraled, and it took me years to realize that I was completely masking the heartbreak of that, and that my whole world changed right in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
And I knew in my heart that I made the right decision, but it was very hard for me. So me going to in those years when I was really tight with you and partying over there and everything, I was just going way too hard partying, and I was completely running away from my feelings.
Oh
It
yes.
was
Yeah.
so hard for me.
Escapism is a real thing, and we all do it every day. And in moments like that where you're just like trying to like deny the fact that you feel a certain way about something, you run to escapism more than ever.
And I didn't feel like I was sad or anything. I thought I was just fine because I was having fun and I was happy. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, I'm not really happy with what happened or anything like that. And you do it again. You
Well,
mask
yeah.
you mask
I
what
mean,
you weren't happy about. I mean, it was
there's,
just a vicious cycle.
yeah, for sure. There's some happiness I think that comes from, just like
Trying to
instant.
fill the void.
Yeah, well, there's some happiness that's instantaneous, like being around good company, some nice music, good tasting food. These things will bring you happiness in the moment. But there's some things that like bring you like a greater level of happiness, like a more profound level of happiness that I think are a little bit more like worked at. Like one of the things being good mental health, like exercising a lot, having a good friendship, having a good relationship with your spouse, like those type of things they give you a greater level of happiness that sometimes you think you're happy because you're feeling all these moments with those momentary moments of happiness, but the when those moments end, then you're left with that void, like you're saying, that gap of deeper, more important happiness. And now bringing that up, I'd like to say congratulations on your 2 kids.
Oh,
Because I
thank
haven't, I didn't even say that yet over the messages, and I'm realizing that now. I
thank
mean, like,
you.
it's weird because, like, with social media, you feel like you still have a relationship with people, and that's why it's like
I
sometimes you feel like
know.
you don't notice that you're drifting apart because you're still seeing them post. And I've double tapped a photo of you and your kids, but I've never said congratulations on
Thank you.
birthing 2 kids.
I definitely has grounded me a lot, and my husband has a lot to do with that too. He grounded me a lot as well. But yeah, but thank you.
Do you feel like your anxiety has like has
Tripled.
it's tripled? Okay. Well, because
um,
I was wondering how much of anxiety was stemming from you just feeling like you weren't achieving the things that you really wanted in life, like having a kid.
um, I think, God, as much fun as we had in those years, they were my darkest years.
Yeah. Well, okay.
In those years of us being friends in our 20s, they were a blast, but they were very dark for me. Like my anxiety was just starting, but my anxiety then is different than what it is now.
Yes.
Now it's like so much worry. Then it was like so much of the unknown, not knowing where my life was going and what am I doing?
Yeah. Okay.
Am I doing the right thing? So the anxiety I think is so different. I feel much more secure now. It's more so of like worry about my kids. Like, I think that has also a lot to do with some hormones. I think you go through like almost like a chemical imbalance when you go through pregnancy. It's the wildest ride of your life. I don't know. You and I bonded over like us kind of being new to the anxiety, and then we both are Portuguese. And I think being from the same culture, especially, we can only speak to being Portuguese at and feeling this way. But like you're saying, when you go to the hall, so the hall is like a Portuguese hall where a bunch of Portuguese people come and enjoy one another's company, bands, food, drinks, everything. But with our culture, there's been so much, and then correct me if you feel different, so much of like who has the best outfit, who makes the most money, whose hall is even better than the other
Keeping up with
person's
the
hall.
Joneses.
It's a lot of that. And
Yeah.
I don't even think that we've been even broke through any of that yet.
I don't think there's any room to correct you really when it comes to that, because I think what that is we have a very tight knit community and it's very interconnected. You know, we had Facebook before Facebook was around. You know, in the '90s, if I jaywalked, my dad would know by the time I got home. There was a very
See, that's what's really interesting is that you literally grew up in what I felt like, damn, this really reminds me of being in Portugal, because I remember distinctly when Andrea and I were in Portugal when but we were like 13, 14 years old, and we would be walking down the street, and like the little old Portuguese ladies would have their chair outside their house, and that's what they did. They watched all the young kids, and then they went to go
yeah.
tell my grandma and her mom and this, and that's how I felt like Artesia was.
It
Like,
was like that.
how did that like affect you growing up? Like,
I just is just very blessed to have like a childhood where like there was just a bunch of chaperones walking around the streets,
yeah.
and my dad felt comfortable enough and knew the community enough where I could go out and play. You know, like
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the beauty of it. I mean, you felt safe.
I to some extent I was safe. You know, like, and I
Hmm.
think it wasn't an illusion of safety. A community created like an actual layer of safety for kids to play. And there's a lot of the keeping up with the Joneses, like you said, but there's a lot of things that are directly related to like my childhood, and I think to a further extent like the way I am because of the community, like you're saying. And you're right, like there was porches everywhere, and there was a grandma on every street, making sure that, yeah, okay, this guy's not doing too much like he's having fun, but he's not having too much fun, because my dad would find out if I stepped out of line. The network system was pretty intense. And I bring that up because there's all those other things that come along with it, like with the community like that. It's hard not to try to keep up with the Joneses, and just like any other community, the Portuguese community has people that are starting off from different points in life. Some people are immigrating there and have no money. Some people are second generation and have a lot of money, and so there's a dynamic that I think exists in just any other community where there's a somewhat of an anxiety to try to have as much stuff or accomplish as much as the person next to you.
Yeah,
And
it can
and
really do
yeah,
to someone's self-esteem. I always felt when I was over there, it was really hard for me to fit in over there. When I was like 19 going over there, I felt really out of place compared to the girls that were there. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I just felt really out of place. I didn't feel like I fit in at all. I probably didn't.
I don't get that. Maybe because I was not so much of an insider. Like I grew up in the community. Like I played at the community hall my entire life, but I didn't do the folklore festivals, and I didn't, participate in a lot of the cultural things like as much as everyone else. So to some degree, I kind of always felt like somewhat of an insider outsider of the group, So
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm just like I have a similar perspective. I don't, or I lack perspective to see what you're saying, but I can understand like feeling. And I went up and traveled and went to visit the other halls, which I never did. That was a first time experience for me, And there were so many other halls where I felt wildly out of place. I couldn't
Yeah.
speak Portuguese. Okay, like I couldn't communicate properly, and I was embarrassed, completely ashamed almost,
Yeah.
because I didn't have the same level of connection to the culture that a lot of the people that were showing up to the hall in those areas did. So I can totally see, just feeling out of place, because to some degree you are out of place, but I don't think you ever stuck out as like in a crowd as being like, oh, that's an outsider,
I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, but I
Maybe
could be wrong,
maybe
because I think,
other
but
people say
I
different.
think I have a theory that everyone's so preoccupied about their self insecurities that no one's really paying attention to any one person enough to be worried about the things that they should be worried about. So, I mean, if everyone's just constantly calculating what people are thinking of them, then no one's really thinking of you in the way that you're thinking they are. So that might be confusing to understand. Did you get what I meant?
I totally understand what you mean. And when you said that you started visiting other Portuguese halls and you felt out of place because maybe you didn't feel like Portuguese enough or whatever it may be, it like clicked in my head like, he gets it because I'm very Portuguese. I speak it fluent. Like I can keep up with the old guys.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I didn't know, I never saw it from your view.
And
So
every like the vibes are completely different, and you're right. Like, but there's this underlying thing that connects us all, but there's still wildly different locations, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's definitely like I acknowledge that I was a fish out of water when I was visiting them.
you just grow so much insecurity. And I think um our parents' generation, there weren't a lot of tools that they were given from their parents to communicate with us to help us through that. And now when I know that you have older nieces and nephews, but my niece is just starting middle school, and I had asked her the other day, I said, how are the girls treating you at school? And she's like, it's okay. And I'm like, are they kind of mean to you? And she's like, sometimes. And I said, you know why, right? And she's like, no, because you're a very confident, beautiful girl. And some people are not as confident as you, and they may get jealous of your confidence, but don't let that dim your light. And I just wish somebody would have been like, hey, how are people treating you? And I think that's where we can start breaking that and start communicating like, you good? Like, check in.
Yeah.
Nobody ever checked in with me. Just like, Sylvia's crazy. She's wild. She's a partier. But nobody checked in with me.
Yep. True.
So it was all this judgment of like, you are bad, you're rebellious, you're this, you're that. But there was nobody actually checking in to be like, what's going on? Are you having a hard time processing something? That's where I think that we could kind of fix these like generational curses, as they say, because we have the tools now.
Difficult thing, because like I mean, because just not checking in on someone, just checking in on someone is not a difficult thing, and I think you're 100% right that it's a simple gesture to just ask someone like, hey, what's going on? Are you doing good? Or how are you? You can see it in some people's eyes when you ask them how they're doing, that sometimes they haven't been asked that in a really long time. So I agree with what you're saying, that it's not asked quite enough how people are doing and checking in on people. And I'm guilty of doing that a lot too with a lot of my close friends. And just recently, I had a small falling out with a friend that I've had for over 10 years. Since the beginning of high school, and it was not a hostile falling out. Like, there was not anything that really aggravated our relationship. I was just becoming so complacent as a friend and taking his friendship for granted, that I didn't realize that, like I wasn't hitting him up to hang out. Like, he was just hitting me up to hang out, and it was a very one-way energy flow of relationship, and I wasn't checking in on him, seeing how he was doing. It became very superficial, habitual, and we were going through the motions, and I didn't notice that anything. It was like, oh yeah, we're buds, we do the same thing over and over again, we just kick it, but you gotta give energy to your friends around you,
Yeah.
and I wasn't doing that. And like, so I only have so much time in this life, and you can't spend it with people that are not willing to give energy to you, you know. And so I really assessed like myself as a person with that experience, because up until then I thought that I was a good friend. You know, I thought that I gave a lot of energy to people, but I definitely do fall into the habit of taking people for granted. And taking people for granted, I think, is probably one of the worst things we could do.
Any relationship in general, whether it be friendships, whether it been like romantic relationships, it takes work. Like it does. You have to put in the work and I'm the type of friend, or I was the type of friend, I expected a lot from my friends. I feel like, in the sense of um being there. And I think because I was so crumbled on the inside, I really wanted support. I really wanted good close friends, and I was having a hard time distinguishing, like, is this a good friend or is
Yeah.
this a party friend? Like, do I tell this person things or am I going to be talked about at the end of this? It was hard. I think, isn't that like your 20s though? Like, I feel like you're just
Yeah, no,
figuring.
I think that's, I don't know if I've even grown out of that yet. It's still, I'm still concerned with if there's alternative motive to this friendship, if it's a legit friendship, am I wasting my time? Is it authentic? You know, like, because you know, I agree. Yeah, um, I think that's something that I don't think is unique to my 20s, or maybe you've kind of grew out of it and I'm still in it. I don't know, because I still have that feeling in the back of my head when I'm speaking to someone, if their friendship is legitimate, and if I should be opening up and letting my walls down, and telling them all the things that I'm telling them, because I do like to be very transparent and honest in conversation. So like I will start just being an open book, and I'll start talking, and I will do that. And a lot of times I catch myself maybe not doing that with people that I should be.
I have made that mistake so many times, so many times. And I think that you just learn with time that not everybody needs to know everything, and not everyone deserves to go that deep with you.
Yeah.
There has to be like levels of friendship. There are acquaintances, there are, the high and by friends, and then you really are going to just have a selected few of people that you can really deep down talk to. I've had a friend that has been one of my best friends since I was in sixth grade, and we maybe see each other like 2-3 times a year max, and we barely text, we barely check in, but like when we see each other, I mean, we're obsessed with each other. And I can tell her anything, she can tell me anything. We don't feel judged by each other.
Yeah.
That is like a different level of a friendship, that's kind of lifelong.
Understood by both ends usually. You know, I don't think those ever end up being like a one-way street. It's just like you guys both understand that we have this relationship, and there's going to be times where we, like you said, we go on big stints where we don't talk to each other, but we could pick it up exactly where we left off. And I definitely have my friends that are that I share those same type of relationships with, for sure. So I can relate to that.
So did you ever feel like with our friendship, did you ever feel like, damn, that's pretty messed up that she just like all of a sudden, like, we were like best friends, she doesn't even talk to me anymore?
Man, so there was like, it's kind of like I said, I kind of got it going into it right in the beginning of this conversation, because it's layered. Like I think for me, from my perspective, it was very clear to me that there was also a simultaneous like disconnection between like your own really close friends that you had next to you.
Yeah.
So like it was like from where I'm standing, you know, not only are you kind of drifting away from me, but you're also drifting away from a lot of other people that are way closer to you than I was. So it was like, yeah, I felt like very. It was unfortunate that we were no longer speaking, but clearly, I thought that there was something more deeply rooted going on. I didn't take it personal in that way, you know.
Well, I am happy to hear that because it was never anything personal at all. I got to a point, and I kind of spoke on this on the last episode, where when my friend passed away, it was a big wake up call for me, and um I knew I had to change my life. And my life at that time was partying to forget. And it was every single
Yeah.
day, every night. I'd make it to work every day. I was very responsible in that. I'd make it to work every day. But that night I was still going out and I was still coming home. And I was like drunk on a freaking train coming home. It was so irresponsible.
Yeah.
And I just needed to stop, or I was going to be the one that was going to be in the grave. And I had to disconnect from anyone that was in that lifestyle so I can just like restart my life.
For sure. And I that makes complete sense. There was a lot of times that I feel like I got conversations that you would call when you're on that bus, when you're on that train or whatever it's called, the
The
BART.
Bart.
Yeah. So I feel like, yeah, like my friendship was definitely one that was facilitating that lifestyle. If I was a conversation that you had at the end of the night with, then it's very clear that like you have to distance yourself from that in order to like, because I think there's even if it's like the 12-step program with alcoholism, like you have to completely cut yourself off from the things that were a part of like that old lifestyle of life. So like I said, it to me, it kind of just coincided with like what was going on. And I listened to the last podcast with Vanessa, and I think that's why I felt like, yeah, like um it confirmed, I guess, a feeling that I kind of already had, that all right, well, yeah, there was a distancing for self-healing type thing going on.
Yeah. Like Vanessa she put it into really easy words. She just said you needed to sit in your thoughts. And I never allowed myself to sit. I was go, 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 go,
Yeah.
go. I never stopped. For a couple years, I just never stopped. I was never home. I just kept going. I was running from my problems, from my pain, from everything. And it all kind of started crashing down. And I remember when I met my husband, I let him know, I'm like, hey, I just lost a friend. I'm going through stuff. So, like, if you want to date me, I
That's
don't
heavy.
gonna be going on with me. Like, I'm just letting you know that
It's heavy.
I'm kind of going through it. But that was like I was starting to kind of settle down a little bit. And now I just can't even picture being out like that. I'm in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock some nights. These kids, they exhaust me, and they have my personality, so they are very nonstop as well.
Yeah. I'm sure you got your hands full and you're tired, but yeah, I understand that. I mean, I don't have kids, and I feel like I can't even do it too much anymore. I find myself like doing like obligatory nights out with my friends just because I know I can't
You get
stay in
older.
every weekend.
You just get older, and you're like, I just think I would rather just be home.
Of
I
course,
think you've
yeah.
always been kind of more of a
I
homebody type
mean,
of.
I enjoy going out to like concerts, but like just going out to party, like I'll party when there's something to celebrate, but I can't really just go out to party anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's just one of those things. You lose the energy for it, but you kind of have to try to maintain it too. You have to
No,
put your
you
toe in the
have,
water to get bit by a fish. So
yeah, you have to maintain. That's the only way to maintain friendships
yep, you
is you
can't.
have
You got to
to
socialize.
like feed the friendship in a way.
Yeah, I find myself being a homebody and stuff like that way too much to where it's like being very toxic to my lifestyle. I need to start going out more and talking to people and being more social, because it's very easy to regress and not be social. So there's that for sure. And I envy those who find their significant other, and they get to find comfort in that regression from social life a little bit, but uh it's still a struggle.
Well, like my husband, he can make friends anywhere. Like and used to feel like that. Like he's a part of a lot of like car clubs, and he has so many friends. The amount of friends that he's like all their name. I'm like, I can't keep up with these people. And I can never really go with him because there has to be somebody with the kids. But that's like, that's his thing. That's his one thing he does, and it's a couple hours or whatever. And I envy that. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of moms, especially if they're home with kids, they envy that because we don't really get that until our kids are a little bit older. So I'm kind of starting to get a little bit of more, now the baby's 1 years old, and it's easier to take care of him. So I'm able to kind of, if I want to plan a dinner or anything like that. But I'm like, I also have gained some type of codependency on my kids.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to walk out the door because I'm attached too. And I think with COVID, I really have enjoyed being a homebody. And so I have to really put myself out there to not be home.
Yeah, you have to force yourself. It's like
I have to force myself now.
yeah. It honestly, I think it feels it's weird, but it feels like almost like sometimes going out could feel like going to the gym. It's like I have to go do this because not because I want to, because I actually have to, like, and that's weird that I'm arriving at that point in my life where I feel like socializing is becoming a chore, or just something that like a checkpoint that I have to hit for, my own happiness. But I think that comes with, like you said, the pandemic a little bit. But a good buddy will also get me to shake my mental out of that. So I have a friend that pulls me out and gets me to go out, and he stays on me, and he knows the way I am. He knows that I'm hard to go out, but once I go out, I like to have a good time. So a good friend like that will work wonders for your social life.
For sure. I got to find someone over here that can drag me out every once in a while.
I'm very blessed to have my friend that does it for me, because if had not he been doing as much as he does with pressuring, and he'll damn right pressure me, sometimes, because he knows I want to. He knows I want to, and he knows I need to, and he knows that it's healthy to go out and talk to people and spend some time with a friend. And so he stays on me, and he's been getting me out of my show. So it's really nice to have a friend like that. I really would.
Be that friend.
Well,
For
don't ever like, if someone starts being that way, just like don't buck them too hard, man. They're probably they're a godsend, like they really are just doing you a big favor, and just go with it and have fun. Like bucking against that a lot, when my anxiety started becoming more of a socially debilitating thing.
Randy one time telling me, like, I'm like, where's Dom? And he's like, oh, Dom did the vanishing act.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time I noticed that, like, you would just disappear
Yeah.
and you wouldn't say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean he vanished? And I at some point I'm like, what? Yeah, I would text you and be like, are you good? Everything okay? Kind of thing. But that was your way of coping. That was your way of kind of just escaping it.
Yeah, the 1,000%. Sometimes I would just mask it until it became like so physical that I was just like, you know what, this is the threshold. I'm not gonna make a big deal about saying goodbye. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't want to like draw attention to myself and the situation. So I'm also just gonna. And a lot of times the weird thing that I would get was FOMO, I guess, like just a weird kind of just like, damn, man, my social anxiety really just like prevented me from staying. And you feel kind of just like not cool, booby, and it's bummer. It's a bummer when you're like when you're feeling normal again, and you're just like, why can't I just feel like this?
Oh, I know.
There.
I had a couple like anxiety attacks a couple weeks ago, and I was telling my husband, I'm like, I understand so much more now how people get to a breaking point, because it's a feeling that you are just so tired of feeling that way, and you just want it to go away so bad, and you feel like you just want to like grab yourself from the inside out. Like, it's just an unexplainable feeling, and you just want it to be over with and done with, and
Yeah.
you're like, what the hell, go away already. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking of anything. Like, what sparked this?
For me, it's just like an immense, like overwhelming feeling that there's nothing I can do or nowhere I can go that will be the right thing or the right place.
Yeah.
And like it's just that kind of like just something's off, but just in a suspended state of existence, and it gets to the point where it starts to like you kind of described it in over a text message one time as like being like overly self-aware.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going on a lot of the times, when I'm experiencing it, is that like I'm just so aware of what's going on, like what people are looking like, little facial reactions when they look at
I'm
me.
incredibly, incredibly like intuitive, and I can read people the second I meet them. Like, and I've never been wrong about that. I've had like bosses that will hire people, and I'm like, they're gonna last 1 week.
Yeah.
And like, what do you mean? They're great. They're this. I'm like, I'm telling you, this and this and this and this is gonna happen.
Personality stuff.
You're gonna see, this is what's gonna happen, and this is how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And it happens. Like, and they're like, what the hell? Like, I'm like, just let me interview them.
And I think there's a lot of people give tells, like there's a lot of tells when someone's dissatisfied with you, and a lot of it's nonverbal, like their eyebrows scowl or something, and you just know that they don't find your presence very enjoyable or something like that. So I find myself very hyper tuned into those things too.
I can feel that just from social media from people. And I have a terrible habit of being like, delete, gone, unfollow.
Yeah, that's no good.
And you are the one person. I was actually telling my husband about this about you. I'm like, he is the one person that has ever just friended me back. Like, you're not gonna do this to me. You're not unfollow me. Well, this is not how this is gonna go down. And you won't even say anything, and like, you follow me back, and I request you back, and like, we don't even say anything, and I'm like, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, because to me it was like, oh, clearly there's a mistake here, like I must have unfollowed this person or something, or they got their account hacked, because I didn't even stop to think for a moment. Like I didn't read into it like that, because I thought that I didn't think that there was any reason for us to not be friends on social media, so when I realized that we were no longer friends, I just, all right, well, let's fix that,
I think I get into these like little modes where I'm like, you haven't engaged in my life. You're just looking just to look.
Yeah.
And you don't care about me.
I could totally be categorizing that person in your mind, and I understand that.
But I actually never categorized you in that. It was more for you, and for me unfollowing you, it was like, we just don't talk. He hasn't talked to me.
Yeah.
It was never, I never felt judged or that you don't like me or anything like that. So I'm like, well, I guess like
lack of effort.
It could be. And I also think I have levels of social media. Like for like TikTok, I don't want anyone to know me. I want it to be purely strangers that follow me. I don't want to know anyone. I don't want anyone to see my TikTok. And then Instagram, I really am more personal with it. It really is the people that I enjoy and that I feel enjoy me as well. And then Facebook is just a free for all.
Yeah, Facebook's just like you got to have everyone so that you get the notifications on like, oh, this person passed away. Here's the funeral information. Like Facebook is just send it. Everyone that I've ever met is basically my friend.
Exactly.
I get that. Like, and that's where I kind of get into like, I understand, because it's so easy to just be a viewer of someone's life instead of like a participant, especially with social media, like, and I fell into that category of friend that was just viewing your life instead of participating in it. So, I mean, I totally get
your anxiety now that you feel better. I mean, do you feel like you still suffer a lot?
I don't suffer from panic attacks really anymore. I've learned to like I think everyone has a natural levels of anxiety, like, oh, I have a job meeting tomorrow.
For sure.
You should definitely be a little anxious, like go iron your clothes and go to bed earlier. Like there should be a level of anxiety that is naturally pushing you to be on your P's and Q's. But like having just like a panic attack because I'm in the presence of people. Like, I don't really experience that anymore, like, uh, that was like some sort of weird, just like caring too much about what was being thought about everyone around me, like what they were thinking and what they thought of me, and just being too, I guess, hyper aware of the situation. So I've learned to like kind of just like block those things out and enjoy the situation for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't find myself experiencing anxiety like that. I do experience now like a more like philosophical, profound level of anxiety where like I feel like I'm getting older and I need to like move on with a certain stage of my life and start having a kid or something. So there's definitely like a shift in the level of anxiety that I have. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not having panic attacks in the middle of the night, like, I gotta go out and find a wife, like that's not happening. Like yeah. So like I think I'm much more in control of my actual level of anxieties, to the point where I don't become overwhelmed and have to escape and go home. Because it got to the point where I found myself even becoming anxious around people at my own family dinners and stuff, and I found myself spending less and less time at, at family gatherings, and that was breaking my heart. So that's when I was like, hey, that was like my rock bottom for anxiety, like if there was a rock bottom for anxiety, it's like I can deal with like not seeing friends, I can deal with like not being able to like be the best version of myself in public, but one thing I can't deal with is like I got to get away from my family, like I got to go home and just be by myself. I can't. That's an unacceptable level of anxiety for me. So panic attacks, I think, were just like tied. Those was just like your body's alarm system saying, "Hey, you're not living life right. You're not living life right.
Yeah.
Fucking go home and reassess before you go out and try to do stuff like this, and
Totally.
yeah, and that's
I've
kind of what
never
that is.
looked at it like that, like an alarm clock in a way.
Yeah, or like the a check engine light that comes on for your truck. If you haven't changed your oil for 20,000 miles, something bad's gonna happen. And if you don't take care of yourself for a certain number of years, you're gonna have a breakdown. And so I think anxiety is that alarm going off and telling you that, hey, something's wrong, you don't feel right, you're doing something right now that you're not supposed to be doing, or something. It's hard to believe that it's not stemming from some sort of like actual, because I have a hard time to believe that the body is going through that immense like amount of like stress for no reason.
I
It
agree.
can't purely just be like it's all in your head, just get over it. Like
Yeah.
there's things that you're
That's
subverging, there's
where
things
like
that you're avoiding, there's something, there's bills, there's money, you're not meeting your own personal standards for your career, there's something that's bothering you, and those are just the alarms going off, and I stopped ignoring the alarm and I started listening to it, and that's all that happened. And so
I've been in therapy, and I think there have been things that have happened to me in my upbringing, and it goes back to us being products of our own environment, and where I feel like my sisters and I didn't have really the tools to learn how to communicate with one another. And I think in a lot of the Portuguese culture, it's like your finger up saying no, 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 but never why. And we were always like trying to figure out why without asking why and not being told why.
yeah,
And my sisters and I are going through a really kind of beautiful thing, I think, right now, where we're acknowledging that we weren't given the tools to be able to say, I fucked up.
yeah,
I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
oh
I,
yeah,
I
wow,
didn't mean it that way. You misunderstood me. I didn't mean to hurt you when I said that. I said that because, like, there were never tools, and we're not perfect beings either. My parents did an amazing job with us. They didn't have the tools themselves, but now that we're able to process that, I see now my reactions, my rash reactions to situations where I would just cut people off and just be done, 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 and not having the conversation like you and I are having. I could have saved a lot of that if I just would have had the tools to know how to communicate that.
yeah. I think that's still super rare. I mean, there's adults that are in their 40s and 50s that still don't know how to do that. Being able to just humble yourself and be like, I fucked up, I was wrong, is very hard to do. Is very hard to do, and most people are still struggling with it. So it's awesome that you're working on that, and you've got that skill set in your tool belt, because that's something I'm still working on in its entirety too.
And I think
I explained with my friend that I had a falling out with, I had to really reflect on myself, and be honest with myself that, like, dude, you've been a shitty friend, and like, you need to not only just start being a better friend, you have to like acknowledge that you were being a bad friend and fess up to it if you actually want, like,
respect and hearing somebody acknowledging their shit.
oh, for sure. And like the most of the times, like, you want to address the situation, you just don't have like the guts to, in a way, like
Yeah.
you want to just you want to get it off your chest and be like, my bad that I was being this way. And that's why I don't want to not acknowledge your when you apologize to me for something that I feel like you don't need to. I still want to acknowledge your apology, because that takes a lot of like um that takes a lot of effort in itself just to do that, but there's a lot of things I think that people do to avoid just saying sorry to someone, when really what's going to make them feel better and what's going to make the person that they did something to feel better is just to kind of confront it head on. But a lot of people don't like confrontation, you know? And that's where I'm kind of blessed, where like I was growing up with a family that maybe communicated a little bit too loudly to each other. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
We spoke a little too honestly to each other.
100.
So the concept of confronting something that bothers me so that it can no longer bother me and we can have a better relationship, that's not foreign to me, and that's
So what advice would you give me, like, moving forward with this podcast and kind of going through these hard conversations? Like, what do you feel like? Because at some point, I know it's not gonna be as easy as it's been with you and Vanessa. I think the conversation, I think, will get harder with some people.
yeah.
Right now I feel very positive, but I think I was received very well by you and Vanessa. So I don't know if that's going to be the same moving
Well,
forward.
I mean, hopefully not. I mean, I hope for your sake that it's not going to be this easy going forward, because then, like, your intentions are to grow from this and to
Yeah.
confront things that you're not really necessarily excited to confront. So if you are to achieve what you intend to achieve by starting it, unfortunately, I would wish for you to go through those growing pains and those awkward moments and those stripes. The only thing I could really stress for you is to do your best to just get them to talk to you, because I think the biggest challenge I think you're going to have is just like getting people to agree to open up to you. And if once you've done that, you've definitely succeeded. So my advice to get you to make things go smoothly is to not necessarily try to make things go smoothly. Like, things are not for them to be authentic, they're probably not going to go smoothly. But just so lucky that the other person is willing to be a part of that level of confrontation, do everything you can to make that happen, and if it involves like having a relationship with them out, because not everyone's going to be comfortable with like record our conversation,
Of course. One,
you
yeah.
know
Yeah.
like I
There'll be
was
some
nervous at first, and I feel like that's
the
something that like I can handle. People are going to be like, listen, if you want to have this conversation with me in front of people, then we're going to have some level of conversations, um not in front of people, in privacy. And I think you should be very open to that. I don't think that takes any like authenticity away from like the podcast. I Reaching out to people that you've lost your relationship with is a really cool idea. And that's why when I saw you post this, I was like, that's rad. Like, I think that's cool. And I think along the way you're gonna have conversations, and there's gonna be very interesting ones. There's gonna be very dull ones, and there's gonna be ones, like you said, if you're lucky, are actually hard to deal with, or hard to navigate and hard to do. And when you're in those moments when you feel like, oh, this is very uncomfortable, just remind yourself that that's what you're signing up for, you know. certain level of uncomfortableness to get the outcome that you desire, and you're definitely doing that right now, and it's admirable, and I advice would just be don't hold back on it. Like don't second guess yourself. No one's listening. Like if people aren't listening, don't have any and expectations for like your crowd or anything. Just do your conversations as authentically as possible, and then just let the rest unfold.
That is great advice and very meaningful. And I appreciate you and I appreciate our friendship so much. There is not there, like I said, there's only a handful of people that I can talk openly about my anxieties and things that I went through, and you know so much about a lot of my dark moments, and I appreciate you always being a friend that never judged me and just always just heard me. Like you a friend to me. So I have to say, even though you're going through, maybe a friendship fallout, you're a very good friend, and don't ever second guess that.
Well, that's appreciated. And there's a lot of times where, I mean, I can think of too, that where I was feeling not fully myself, and not feeling like fully comfortable to be having a good time. And there was a lot of times where, although you say are like the darkest, and then I accept that, like, are dark for you, there was a lot of good fun times that we had, and I appreciate like your friendship through those years. It was,
Specifically, us screaming at the top of our lungs to the song "Twist and Shout."
exactly. I like the porch, and just like you helping me be comfortable. Like, just, oh, you're not singing as hard as you can. Sing louder. Like, there's a lot of moments to where you help people have a good time. So I think you should give yourself credit in that way. Like, although like the party thing wasn't necessarily the healthiest phase of your life, there's some credit to be where you make people feel comfortable, and you're easy to talk to, and you're fun to be around. So there's definitely credit earned there, and credit due. So give yourself credit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love you.
Love you too.
And thank you so much for talking with me. And I can't wait to keep this friendship growing.
Yeah, I'm glad to have had this conversation. It was like